picking up where we left off. So now I just finished ordering numbers from least to greatest. That means the smaller numbers. I wanted to identify them first and then work my way up the number line to the bigger numbers. Now I have a new task. I'm going to take a look. I need to order the numbers from greatest to least. So now, tip, greatest, the most positive, and least would be the most negative. So let's look at these numbers. I'm going to go ahead and cover up my numbers in my earlier problem, not to confuse me. These are the ones I'm looking at. I have positive 23, negative 45, negative 13, negative 10, and negative 55. Well, right away I can tell, since there's only one number that is positive, that would be my biggest number. I can leave it as 23, or I can even put it as positive 23. There's my greatest number. That one's first. Then I'm going to look to see, it's almost like you kind of have to shift your brain backwards. If these numbers were positive, actually I'm going to write that in a different color over here. If these numbers were positive, if I changed negative 45, negative 13, negative 10, negative 55, if I changed all these to positive numbers, which one would be bigger? Looking at these positive numbers, oh, positive 55 is bigger. Well, remember we talked about opposites before? Hopefully this will help you. If it would be the biggest positive, that means it's the smallest negative. So I'm going to change these back to negative numbers. Oop, 45, duh. So now, if I'm thinking of the biggest positive, its opposite would be the smallest negative. And these would obviously be further left on the number line. So from greatest to least, if I'm going from greatest to least, that means I'm working my way from the biggest number, squeezing it down into the smaller number. So I'm going to look and see which of these negative numbers is closest to 0. Which of these negatives is bigger? Because I'm starting from bigger to smaller. Well, if I looked on a number line, negative 10, like on my number line, I can see negative 10 on this number line. I don't see any of these other numbers. So that would be my next number I would write on, my number line. It's almost as if I started at 23 on the number line, and I started walking down the number line, and which number am I going to see next? From greatest to least. Well, I would run into negative 10 if I keep walking. Next I would find negative 13. Next I would find negative 45. And lastly I would find negative 55. So if you're going from greatest to least, think like you're starting on the greater side of the number line and walking your way down. If you're going from least to greatest, you want to start on the smallest side and work your way up the number line. Now I know this can be confusing, so at this time I want you to take a look at your notes and make sure they match mine perfectly. And then when you're ready, you're going to turn your papers over. Oh, my Sharpie bled through a little bit. You'll forgive me. So I'm going to do a couple of these problems with you, and then I want you to complete the other side. So I'm going to do one side, you're going to do the other. So I'm doing odds, you're doing evens. Capiche? So let's look at the first one. Compare the pair of numbers using greater than, less than, or equal to. So looking at these two numbers, negative 56, negative 57. Thinking they're both negative. I'm going to look at my notes. If both numbers are negative, the number closest to 0 is greater. Thinking this number, negative 56, if I drew a number line, I would have negative 56, and to the left of it would be negative 57. So that one, if I kept walking up the number line, I'm going to get to 0 first with this number. So this one is bigger. So you're going to do the same with these two numbers. compare the pair, I'm jumping to number 3. Compare the pair of numbers using greater than, less than, greater than, or equal to. So right away, if I had imagined a number line, I should always start with 0. I should have done that up there. Start with 0. And if I walked down the number line or dove into the ocean, what would I hit first? Negative 26 feet or way down here, negative 87 feet? Well, this one's closer to the surface of the water. So this one is bigger. It's closer to 0. Negative 26 would be way closer than negative 87. Also, negative 87 is more left. And if you reference Miss Madera's number line that's up above her window, numbers further left are smaller and numbers to the right are bigger. All right, I'm going to do the number 5. Order from least to greatest. So right away I have a negative number, negative number, negative number, and my 2 positives. All right. I like to do the parentheses to separate them because it can get a little confusing, especially with how many digits are all together. So I'm going to take a look. From least to greatest. Least. They want smaller first. Notice how I put that on the left. So least to greatest. Smaller all the way up to bigger. So thinking, my negative numbers I know are already smaller. I know that. So I'm going to focus on those guys first. Now, which one of these is further to the left on the number line? Negative 20, negative 18, or negative 16? Negative 20. Go back to the ocean and the mountain example if you're not sure. Which one's deeper under the water? 20 feet is deeper, because if I went up closer to the sea level, which is 0, if I moved up, that would be 20, then it'd be 18, then it'd be 16. Moving up, negative of all the 3 of these numbers because it's under the water. So 20 is further down in the ocean. That is the least. Then if I floated up the ocean or floated up the number line, the next number I'd run into is negative 18. Then the next number I'd run into is negative 16. All right, all my negatives are taken care of. Now, just like you're used to looking at your other numbers, I'm going to find the smaller one because I'm going from least to greatest. Which of these 2 is smaller? Well, 15 is. So next I would write positive 15 and end with positive 19. So you're going to do the same thing over here. Again, it really helps to think about if you're going from least to greatest, you want to start from the furthest, deepest part of the ocean and work your way up the number line. And I'll help you set up the last problem. You will do this one on your own or with a partner. Miss Carol's class was playing a game where each group started at negative 500 points and earned points to try to get to 0 first. Team A had negative 450, Team B had negative 360, and Team C had negative 380. Which team came the closest to winning? So they all started way down here. So all I need to know is which of these numbers is the closest to winning. They want to get to 0. So that means which integer is closest to 0. That's what they're asking. Gentle reminder, Team A had negative 450. Team B had negative 360. And Team C had negative 380. So you guys need to figure out on a number line or go deep in the ocean, which is closest to the water. You want close to 0. That's what the sea level is. That's 0. To figure out which of these teams is winning. They're close to winning. Which one's closest to 0. All right. Once you've worked on this, then you can get started on your group work.